The teaching of non-duality is based upon misunderstandings, misconceptions, and it originated from a lie, is the truth behind non-duality. Most people that are entrenched in the belief of non-duality, the New Age relief, the Swamis teach it, but the New Age teachers teach it also. I don't know of anyone that actually challenges them with any substance, and I think the reason is because most of the people that teach non-duality are very intelligent people. They are not easy to, well, when I say not easy, I don't think you can have a debate with them and win an argument if you are not an enlightened person. More than that, enlightened and also with at least a modicum of understanding of what God is, to the extent that you've felt the Spirit of God, if you will, something like that. Short of that, I don't think there's any way to debate or have a conversation with and redirect or to shed light on why the teaching of non-duality is a corrupt teaching, because philosophically they have a good argument, and it's good because for the most part it's right and correct, but they don't go to the extent of what reality truly is. And what I mean by that is, in my mind, I'm reminded of when I say reminded, I'm creating this reality in my mind of a child that cannot understand whatever it is, an adult situation that is taking place, and a child wants to participate and they're incapable, and so they lay on the floor and scream and kick their feet and everything else. But they're a child, and they are spoiled, and they want to have what they want, and by God, that's what they're going to have. That reminds me of the teachers of non-duality that teach the concept of there is no I, there is nothing in existence, this is just a reality that is expressing itself, and it is an ongoing expression of itself, and there is no you, there is no I, and this sort of thing. Those people that teach that sort of thing are like the spoiled child. They refuse to learn the truth of what is really going on. And I think, in all likelihood, their ego is built by and supported by their fan group, if you will, or their followers, or the people that pay close attention to them. That's what sustains them. It certainly isn't any spiritual sustenance that keeps them going. It's their ego. They like the attention and the following and that sort of thing. And they're probably even unaware of that, but that's what's really driving them for the most part. So how can I support what I'm saying against non-duality? Well, I can explain to you what reality more closely aligns with, and then you can choose for yourself if it sounds legitimate. Now, I personally have experienced what I am speaking of, but there's no way for you to experience it. But not without going through some process of whatever it takes for each individual. But what I mean by that is, I can express to you, coming from a basis of knowing, of what reality is, be through experience and everything, like enlightenment. But from your perspective, you just have to sit there and listen to it. And now you have a choice. Does that sound credible, or does this sound, because you're the determiner of your own reality. They like to say there is no reality. Reality is just playing out, but that's a lie. There are two realities playing out in all reality, and they say there's just one, and that this big expanse. But in fact, there's two. There's your reality that is interacting with the reality, and they assume it's all just one reality. Just because they're ignorant of their own essence and existence doesn't mean that they don't exist and that there is no essence of their own. They just don't know that, and so they mistakenly assume that there's only one. So let me back it up. Before the Big Bang, before the Creator, the Almighty God, the Absolute Brahman, before the Big Bang, before things were created, there there was a reality, which, by the way, there still is the same reality, but there was a reality that there is no duality, there is no non-duality, there is no physicality, there is the foundation of all reality emanating from no thing, which is there's no space, there's no light, there's no dark. All there is, for the best way to term it, is awareness. I mean, that I guess that's, so we could say the Creator, Brahman, is awareness. Now, you cannot separate awareness from awareness. Here's awareness, there's awareness. And likewise, you can't separate love. Here's 30% love, and here's 27.25% love, and you combine them all together and you have this amount of love. No. It's not like water, like the non-dualists like to teach you, like there's a drop of water and that's indicative of your Atman as compared to Brahman, which is the ocean. It isn't that way at all. There is a reality that there is no drops, there is no oceans. There's just awareness, and then there's non-awareness. Non-awareness does not mean the lack of existence. All it means is the awareness has not become aware yet. And so the Bible story, for instance, is and it's not just Bible, there's a lot of different ancient writings that depict stories that are not real, but they depict a variant of what reality truly is. So it says in the beginning God created the light. Well, that's indicative of Brahman, God, the Creator, the God that Jesus prayed to, cast his light, and his light, or her light, or its light, or whatever, cast it, and you, as a non-existent entity, could see the light, and you got to choose whether or not you wanted to accept it. And as soon as you accept that light, you popped into existence. Now, you did it yourself. You're the one that accepted the light of God, and when you did that, you created yourself from nothing. You're still nothing, by the way. You're just an awareness that now is aware that there's such a thing as light. Now, that's a pretty rudimentary awareness, for sure, because there's either nothing or there's light, and light being the love of God. So you accept that, and now all you are is an awareness that, like a computer code, there's zeros and ones, zeros and ones. Well, you went from a 0 to a 1. And through the process, you continue to develop yourself. Now, starting from a zero, the reason God cast his light is because there's no way to know if there is anything out there in awareness land, let's call it that. And so over a geographical area, and please don't take this as I'm being literal, because there is no way to define the true nature of reality from a physical standpoint. So I'm just using words that are, to my way of thinking, describing what reality truly is, okay? So God cast his light, and so you created yourself, and prior to creating yourself, God didn't know what you were. It doesn't matter that, I mean, they say God is all-knowing and all-powerful and all that stuff, but okay, so what? So see, the paradigm that you need to shift to is just because God knows everything, think about that. Does God know nothing? No, God knows everything. Okay, well, then prior to you creating yourself, you're nothing. Therefore, God didn't know you. Because you're nothing, and God doesn't know nothing. So, or God knows everything, but doesn't know nothing. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. Anyways, so you created yourself. And at that moment, you didn't know what you are, because you don't know what you are. All you know, and you don't even know this, is that the essence of what you are created itself because it responded to the love of God. And at that moment, God knew of your existence. But God didn't know anything about you yet, because it's a total mystery, because everything you are emanates from nothing. Everything you are emanates from nothing. And God keeps providing the somethings that you build yourself with. And so that's why Jesus talked about things like, I and the Father are one, or we're the same. If you've seen me, you've seen. There's a lot of similitudes there, but people take that crap literally, and they fall astray because they're not listening from the same perspective of where Christ was coming from. They're listening from a perspective of ignorance, or from their point of view of reality, that is like the non-dualist teaching you that nothing exists, you're blah, 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 blah. But none of that is true. What's true is you're creating yourself out of nothing, and God is providing the opportunities. And then you go a billion, trillion years or whatever, however long it takes, I don't know. But the bottom line is, you're now a human being. You're pretty far along the path, and here's where the non-dualists get screwed up. They go through meditation and mind awareness and everything else, and finally realize, because it makes sense to them, that, and I'm speaking of a lot of different non-dualists. For instance, Sanatana Dharma teaches a type of non-duality that was taught by Adi Shankara. The New Age non-duality people teach, in my opinion, a significantly different kind of non-duality, but it doesn't matter. They're all derived from the same basis, that there is no you, and that just is not true. So you got the idea of how you were created. Well, now we march along a trillion years, and you get to the point where you're at now. And okay, so what are you? Well, you are, as Jesus said also, aren't you all gods? You know, I mean, that's not really a strong point, but in fact, it is true. But when you think about ye are all gods, you know, the term God is a rank. For instance, you got a lieutenant, a captain, a general. So you could say a god is like a rank of a general. Well, you're all generals. You've already got to the point in your existence that you're a general. Maybe a cat is a lieutenant or something. I'm just using words to define. So, yeah, you are a god. That doesn't mean you are the god. You're just a god. But you don't know it because, again, since God doesn't know what you are, you try, it's like in this physical reality, the intelligent people that teach non-duality and others that listen to them have a cognitive awareness level that makes sense to them. They go, wait a second, there is no me. Through a fraction of enlightenment, they realize, oh, there is no me, there's just this physical body and this world that is emanating. Well, that's true because God is creating this physical body that is talking to you with this mouth and these eyes and this brain, 100% God. There's none of it is the me that I'm talking about. None of it is the essence that created itself from the very first spark of reacting to the light of God, and that's the essence I'm talking about. None of this is that. Everything you see, everything in existence is Brahman. Everything is God. And none of this is me. So consequently, from a non-dualist perspective, is God playing a game and creating this physical body that isn't aware that it is God? 100% yes, that is true. That is why when Christ taught this, others teach it, when you pray to God, oh dear God, blah, 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 blah. And Christ says, well, God already knows what you're going to pray before you even pray it. Well, of course, because God is you. You are God. There's no way, when you pray and you go, dear Father in heaven or God or whatever, my life is absolutely miserable, my wife has divorced me, my kids are this, my kids are that, please, don't you understand me? Of course God understands you. God is you. God is ignorant of himself being suffering as you, because that is how God has the empathy and love for you, because God can split himself, if you will, and these are again just terms being used. God can split himself and not only be the omniscient and all-powerful God, but also be you at the exact same time. And that is exactly why and how God can empathize with you. That's blah, blah, blah. But there's also a you that's this mystery, and that is the essence of me is the power and force behind making this video, is the power and force that is co-reacting with this physical brain, body, and everything else that is 100% God. And the essence of me, if I were analyzing myself and I go, who am I? The essence of me that is unseen and unreally known totally unknown by non-dualists, is ignorant of itself. But why wouldn't it be ignorant of itself? God doesn't know what it is. That's the purpose of this reality, is for you to create yourself so that God knows what you are. So that when you fully mature 100% and you cannot mature any further, you've reached the limit. Like, for instance, Lucifer has reached his limit of what he is. God has reached the limit of what God is. What is your limit? Well, you're not there yet. So you go, oh gosh, I don't know what I am. Therefore, I'm nothing. You see the leap that you take? Another way to look at non-duality, or the non-dualists, are they teach how, you're clinging. You think you're a fireman, or you think you're this. You just cling. But the epitome of clinging is a non-dualist, because once they realize through a type of fear in its incipient phase that, oh my gosh, I don't exist, boom, they instantly go from non-existence to clinging to, oh, I'm God. Well, of course you are. Your body is God, but you see, that's just another clinging. You have to let go of that, and they cling and say, well, I don't exist, and everything is God. Well, that's clinging to the fact that you're saying you're God, and you have to get rid of that. You have to be, when I say have to, if you're going to ever become spiritually God enlightened, at some point you have to realize what you are and be satisfied with, oh, I don't know what I am. Simply because God doesn't know what you are. And just not knowing what you are does not mean you don't exist. It only means you're in the process of creating yourself into an existence. Now, one other perspective that I'd like to throw out there is the old concept of the rainbow scenario, where I say there is no such thing as a rainbow. Rainbows are purely 100% perspective based, and that when you see the light coming through the sky and reacting with the mist or the clouds or whatever, and you see a rainbow, purely 100% perspective. Rainbows do not exist only but through your perspective, okay? So that's kind of like the essence in this reality and everything. We're pretending rainbows exist when we say, oh, I am this, or I am that, or I know what I am, or I'm very spiritual, or I'm not very spiritual, or I'm hateful, or I'm greedy, or I'm love, or this, or that, or whatever. Or making the perspective on another human being. Oh, that person is this. All you're doing is fixating upon the image of a rainbow and saying that's what it is, when in fact there are no such things as rainbows. You create them by your perspective, by looking at it, and your eyes are interacting with a perspective that is seeing something that doesn't really exist. And I've explained that before. If you have a million perspectives of the same rainbow at the exact same time, none of them are going to create a definable rainbow. So that's what's going on. The non-dualists get fixated upon that rainbow and say, that's what reality is. I'm God, or I don't exist, or whatever the case may be, but it's fixating upon that rainbow. When you transcend all definitions of reality, and you only rely on the experience of the essence of that first that first opportunity where you responded, where you created yourself from a 0 to a 1, when you are focused upon that particular essence, that thing, whatever that thing is, when you get to that point in the rainbow scenario where you let loose of all perspectives and be satisfied with a perspectiveless definition of what you are, and be satisfied with that. It's like, I don't know what I am. I don't care that I don't know what I am. It doesn't bother me. I know that I am. I just don't know what I am. I know that from this point in my existence that I love God profusely. Because of that, it has driven me to understand more things, and because of that, I have had experiences that are not only spiritual enlightenment, but a type of God enlightenment that I have never actually read of anyone having. I know for a surety Jesus had it, and I'm pretty damn certain Buddha had it because he expresses it in the Lotus Sutra. But as far as Krishna, I don't really know for sure because it's so long ago, there's not enough actual written, so I don't know about that. But The reality is that this is an illusion. This is a dream reality created by God. You are interacting with it, but the problem is there's no way to define what you are, because God doesn't know what you are. But you do exist as awareness, and you continue to define what you are through your awareness, interacting with this, and interacting with literally billions of other human beings that are in the same shoes as you are, and they are reacting with this reality and choosing to be good and evil and funny and not funny, and etc., etc. So in the end, what is the bad thing about teaching non-duality? Well, you know what? I don't know if there's anything bad. It isn't true any more than to say Christianity is based upon absolute truth and everything, or anything else. I don't. It's just another lie that is taught to entertain people. It gives the people that teach it some sort of an ego boost that it's very cute and funny to mess with people's minds and everything. And it's easy to do because people, they can fixate upon this reality, and that gives them a basis of a foundation to project themselves from. But when they're involved with the non-duality teachers, and those teachers are really good at knocking that foundation out. If you don't really have a foundation based upon irrefutable enlightenment, when I say irrefutable to your own self, of course, you're not going to be able to stand up and have any ability to understand what true reality is, because they will destroy that for you, because they're pretty good at doing that. But it's wrong. It's a non-truth. And I understand that there's a dark side to it also. And the dark side is that they're trying to, in a way, what they're doing is, if you believe that, then you start thinking there are no consequences to your actions, but there are eternal consequences to your actions. That's the whole point and purpose of why it is taught that Christ died upon the cross for your sins and everything. Well, there's a reality that is beyond this, which is the awareness reality. And when you do evil things, or you do things that are detrimental and deleterious to your eternal self, one way to remedy that is through the atonement of Christ. But you know what? When I say the atonement of Christ, if you read ancient Hindu philosophy and spiritual philosophy, that's a common trait amongst the teachings of ancient, where one of the reasons one of the explanations of the blue color of Krishna is that, like Jesus, he swallowed the poison and that turned him blue. Well, he swallowed the poison so that the other people would not have to suffer from the sins that they've created. It's the same storyline. It's just a couple thousand years before Christ. Anyways, thank you for watching. I'm all over the map here, but I hope it made sense to you. I hope you have a good day. Bye.